Right. So let's start. Guys, you're able to hear me? Those who are on the other side? Can somebody give me a confirmation?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get started. So yesterday we were discussing about capillarity, right? So what is this capillarity all about? So we discussed about capillarity or capillary tube. So what is this capillarity actually? So first of all, what is a capillary tube? I told you it looks something like a straw, right? So when you take the capillary tube and dip it into a liquid, then what is it you can observe? You can either observe the rise in the level of liquid or dip in the level of liquid. You are able to see two diagrams, right? So one is when you dip it into water, you are able to see that the water level has got raised inside the straw. Whereas when you dip it in mercury, what has happened? It has got dipped, right? So this kind of a phenomenon of increase or decrease in the height of the liquid column inside a capillary tube is what we call it as capillary action, or sometimes they call it as capillarity. Is that clear, guys? So let me read this out. So any tube, any tube with a fine bore is what we call it as a capillary tube. Okay, when such a tube is dipped in liquid like water, which wets the tube. Wets the tube in the sense the angle of contact is acute. We discussed it on the other day, right? Then what will happen? The level of the water in the liquid, level of the water in the tube will rise. However, the liquid level in the tube falls below its level in the container in the case of liquids like mercury, which do not have the property of wetting the tube, which do not have the property of wetting the solid surface. Okay, the phenomenon of rise or fall of liquid in the capillary tube is what we call it as capillarity. So some of the familiar examples are rising of oil in the wick of a lamp. So you would have seen the lamp which is lit in your house, right? They'll use some thread kind of thing, right? Which is called as a wick, which is slightly dipped into oil. You will burn it at the end, but the oil, if you see after some time, will completely get will be over. I'll not say it is evaporated, it will be over white. See, there are two options, okay? Let's think of the logic, what is happening. So if this is how you would have seen in Diwali times and all also, right? If the fire is here, where will the oil be? Oil will be here, correct? So if the fire is lit here, after some time, is the fire moving into this lamp, or is the oil moving from the lamp to the fire? Which is happening? The oil will start moving towards this lamp to support, towards the fire to support it burning. And why is it happening? It is because of the phenomenon called as capillarity. Okay. Secondly, rising of sap in plants. So this is what happens when you pour water into plants also. Water coming out of the pores of earthen vessels. Similarly, wetting of cloth or dipping in water. This is the example that I gave yesterday. When we use a towel or something, what will happen? It will start moving up. Similarly, if you take ink, you have an ink pen, okay? Have you ever placed it on a paper for a longer time? It will start bloating. So you will have small pores in the paper, it will start bloating. Okay, that is also an example of capillary action. So now I hope you are able to visualize slightly, right? What exactly is going to happen, right? So the last concept that is there is, we saw the concept of rise of liquid, right? We will calculate how much is the rise that is going to take place depending on the surface tension of that particular liquid. So that is what we call it as rise of a liquid in capillary tube, which is also called as ascent formula. Okay. So the Jurin's equation is a very rarely used name, so you need not worry about it. So we call it as ascent formula. So for subjective part, it is an important concept. So please mark it as important. Okay. So let a glass capillary tube of uniform bore be dipped vertically. It is not inclined at an angle. It is vertically dipped into a liquid which wets the glass. So when the liquid has the tendency to wet the glass, will it rise or dip? It will rise, right? Such a liquid rises in the tube, forming what? A concave meniscus. Okay, meniscus is nothing but the shape. So the shape is there, right? This is what they call it as meniscus. So concave it is called because when you see it from the top, it is the concave surface. It's called concave meniscus. The force of surface tension T acts inwards along the tangent to the liquid. So how is the force going to act? The surface tension will act in the inward direction, and we know the fact that the surface tension is always perpendicular to every point on the surface. Is it clear? So this is how the surface tension is going to act. And what is this theta called as, guys? Angle of, we saw it on the other data. It's called angle of anybody.
Contact.
It's called angle of contact. Correct. Okay. So which acts inwards to the liquid meniscus at the points of contact such as E and F as shown in the figure. The meniscus being glued, that is attached to the inside of the tube by the force of adhesion. This force of surface tension, that is the action force acting all along the surface of contact, pulls the tube inwards. So the surface tension that is acting will try to pull the tube in the inward direction. That is what they are trying to say. An equal reaction to this force comes into play and acts on the liquid meniscus in the upward direction. The action is unable to pull the tube downward as the tube is either held in hand or clamped. So what they are trying to say is, listen. So when you read this statement, you should be able to understand. Is it clear till the concave meniscus part? Right, this concave meniscus there, right, due to which there is surface tension. So when the surface tension is acting near the tube, what will it naturally try to do? It will try to pull the particles of tube inside, but it will not succeed. Why? Because it is held by hand or some clamp. So there will be a reaction force which will balance, due to which this whole system will be in equilibrium. Are you able to understand? Okay, but the reaction force remains unbalanced and hence pulls the liquid up. So liquid therefore goes on rising the tube till the upward reaction force is balanced by the weight of the liquid column that is getting raised. Okay, so it has got raised to a certain extent. Then now you see, this is the trickiest part. Concentrate, guys. If there is any doubt, please ask. So the liquid has got raised and this kind of a shape is formed, and this curvature will have a certain radius associated with it. Though it be a completely spherical shape, or it is not going to be a completely spherical shape, we are assuming it to be spherical, so that this radius and this radius is going to be r. So that is when you see it from the side angle. Whereas when you see it from the top, what shape does it take? When you see it from the top, it takes the shape of a circle. Are you able to understand? So, what are all the forces that are acting on it is what we are going to calculate. So, let's take what are all the parameters we need to take into consideration. So, ascent formula, let R be the radius of the capillary tube. When R is the radius of the capillary tube, we are saying R is the radius of the meniscus also. Okay. What about H? H is the height to which the liquid has got raised above the surface. Rho is the density of liquid at room temperature. Okay. Theta is the angle of contact between the liquid and the glass. And R is what? R is the reaction force acting tangentially upwards on the liquid meniscus, and the reaction force is also mathematically equal to T only. Okay. Now, this reaction force T that is acting here is going to be like this. So if this angle is theta, then this angle is also theta because they are vertically opposite angles. So now the T can be resolved into two components. What is it? One is T cos theta and the second is T sin theta. So along the horizontal, what forces are getting balanced? T sin theta is balanced, right? But along the vertical, what are the forces that are getting balanced? So this component T cos theta is there, right? The component T cos theta is the one which has actually pulled the liquid upwards. So that is given, which is responsible for raising of the liquid inside. Further, this component acts along the circumference of the circle of contact. Okay. So T stands for what here? It is the surface tension. So if surface tension is known to you, how are you going to calculate the force? Recollect and tell me. Check your notes. We did a problem also on the other day. So what is the basic formula for surface tension? Total force divided by total length. So total force by total length, force ever. Surface tension into, they just rearrange the formula. Surface tension is equal to force by length. Appo force ever. Surface tension into length, correct? So when you see it from the top, if you observe, when you see it from the top, what will happen is T cos theta will act like this. On every part of the circumference, it is going to act. So the total upward force that is acting is nothing but the surface tension in the upward direction, that is T cos theta, multiplied with the total length, which is going to be 2 pi r, where r is what? R is the radius of the tube itself. Okay. This is step clear, please write it down. So first I suggest you all to draw this diagram and write down the steps along with it. Let me know once you are done.
Thanks.
You both. Right. So listen. So write down this force. Since surface tension is a force per unit length, total upward force is equal to surface tension into length. Two pi r. Did you write it? So I hope everybody is clear with this step, right? Next. So this force, this upward force is balanced by whom? Who is balancing this upward force? See, there are two things happening. T cos theta is pulling the liquid in the upward direction and at a particular point it is stopping. So when it is getting stopped, the upward force would be balanced by a downward force. Only then the system will be in equilibrium. Or else what would have happened? The liquid level would have got continuously rise. So who is balancing? It is the weight of the liquid in that position. Right. So to calculate weight of the liquid, we need to write the formula mg, right? Right. But here we don't have the mass that is present inside the liquid, rather we have the density. So if you have density, what is it we need to calculate? We need to calculate the volume. So what is the volume of the liquid present in this portion? So it is pi r square into h. So volume of the liquid in the cylindrical column ABCD of height h is pi r square h. Okay. Next, if the tube is narrow, the radius of curvature of the meniscus is approximately equal. This is approximately only. I told you in the beginning itself. The radius of the meniscus is approximately equal to the radius of the capillary tube itself. Then the volume of the liquid under the meniscus. See what is happening here. Here we need to be careful with one factor. Pi r square h will happen at t like this. But how is the liquid? It is making a shape like this, means there is no liquid here. So we have to subtract. So that is what they're trying to say. Volume of the liquid under the meniscus is equal to what? Volume of the cylinder CDEF of height r and radius r minus volume of the hemisphere of radius r. That is what they're trying to say. So it is see, you're able to see this portion. So this portion are you able to see? So what is going to be the volume of this portion? Volume of the cylinder CDEF minus volume of the hemisphere. But what is the volume of the cylinder CDEF? Its radius is r and height is also r. So pi r into r. So pi r square into r is the volume of the cylinder minus what is the volume of the hemisphere that is present? It is 2 by 3. Right, 2 by 3 pi r cube. So the volume of the liquid under the meniscus is going to be 1 by 3 pi r cube. This is the volume of the liquid under the meniscus. Guys, are you able to understand what I'm trying to say? So what is the total volume of the liquid including that part, the meniscus part? It is nothing but volume of this portion plus this volume under the meniscus. So how much is that? So total volume is pi r square h plus 1 by 3 pi r cube. Please write it down. Right. Then what will you do? You take pi r square common. If you take pi r square common, what are you going to get? You will get H plus R by 3. Okay. Guys, I'm assuming I'm clear till this step, right? So let me just summarize these two things. Then you are clear with the other parts. See, this is the liquid surface. This is the meniscus, right? So this is the bottom layer, and this height is H. This radius is R. This radius is assumed to be R. Okay. So total upward force, how much? T multiplied with, sorry, T cos theta multiplied with 2 pi R. Right. That is 2 pi RT cos theta. This is one. Now, what are we actually trying to do? We are trying to find the downward balancing force, which is nothing but mg. But to get mg, I need density into volume into g. So to calculate that volume, what are we doing? We are taking this portion plus this portion. So what is the total volume you got by now? So volume is equal to pi r cube plus, sorry, pi r cube, pi r square into r minus 2 by 3 pi r cube. Okay, hold on. Pi r cube by 3, this is what you got. So what is the total volume? So pi r cube by 3 plus pi r square h. So what is taken out common? Pi r square, if I take out common, I'll get h plus r by 3. I hope I'm clear till this step. Now take this and substitute it in the mg equation. So mg is equal to density of liquid into pi r square into h plus r by 3. Let me call this as 3. And you have g. So upward force is balanced by the downward force. What is the upward force? T cos theta into 2 pi r is balanced by rho into pi r square into h plus r by 3 into g. Right? So r and r will get cancelled. What is it we are trying to calculate in this formula? What is our job? We are trying to calculate what is the name of this topic? It is the ascent formula. Ascent means how high the liquid has got raised. So our job is to find h. So we'll write h in terms of all other parameters. So h will be equal to, so pi and pi will also get cancelled. 2t cos theta divided by r minus r by 3. Okay. So is there any g that is getting cancelled? Yes. So 2t cos theta divided by rho rg minus r by 3. Observe what I did. So here what I did is 2t cos theta the other side is equal to, what is that I have? I have h plus r by 3 left out. This r by 3 is taken to the left. So I have 2t cos theta divided by rho rg minus r by 3. Okay. So last point for small capillary tubes, what we can do is R can be ignored, which implies H is equal to 2t cos theta divided by rho. So R by 3 can be ignored actually. Okay, 2t cos theta divided by rho into R into G. Okay, that's it. Right. So the concepts that we left out, now we can see. Ah. So now we can see the concept of Poiseuille's formula, which we left out in the viscosity part. Okay. Now let's see what is the point saying. The volume of a liquid flowing out per second through what? A horizontal capillary tube of length L and radius R under the pressure difference P applied across its end. So what they're trying to say is you have a horizontal capillary tube. Okay. You know what is a capillary tube now? Right? The volume of the liquid flowing out per second, which is also called as rate of flow of liquid, right? So the volume of the liquid flowing out per second through a horizontal capillary tube of length L and radius R under a pressure difference that is applied across ether of length. So under a pressure difference is given by the equation pi, write it down, is given by the equation pi into P R power 4 pi into P R power 4 divided by 8 times neta into L. So 8 times neta into L, and this is what we call it as Poiseuille's formula. So there is no derivation as such for it. It is only based on the dimensional analysis. Okay, if we want, we can derive it, not a big deal. So it is based on the dimensional analysis, but there are certain assumptions that are used in the derivation of Poiseuille's formula. First, the flow of liquid is steady and parallel to the axis of the tube. Okay, all the formula that you have derived is under the steady state condition. Second, the pressure is constant over any cross section of the tube. You take any particular cross section, the pressure is going to be a constant, means the pressure will not keep changing with respect to time. Third, the liquid velocity is zero at the walls of the tube and increases towards the axis of the tube. At the walls of the tube means, you remember I told you a concept, whenever the liquid is flowing through a fixed surface, flowing on a fixed surface, at the fixed fixed surface, the liquid has zero velocity. As you move away from it, its velocity keeps increasing. That is what they are trying to say. So at the fixed surface, the velocity is zero, but whereas you move towards the axis in the sense towards the center, its velocity keeps increasing. Okay. Lastly, the tube is held horizontal so that the gravity does not influence the flow of liquid. So here the liquid is completely flowing only under the influence of pressure difference. Am I clear? Is there any doubt? Things are clear? Now, right. So derivation of Poisson's formula on the basis of dimensional analysis. Please write it down. Derivation of Poisson's formula on the basis of dimensional analysis. Okay. The volume, so it is given, see, the volume Q of liquid flowing out per second depends on following parameters. What are they? It depends on coefficient of viscosity. It depends on radius R of the tube. And it depends on the pressure gradient setup along the capillary tube. So what did they say? The rate of flow of liquid is directly proportional to, did you write it down? Pressure gradient, P by L. So what does this say? Q is directly proportional to neta power A. You tell me next. Radius power B into pressure per unit length power C. Guys, am I clear? Is it clear? So Q is equal to K times neta power A, where K is the dimensionless constant, R power B, and P by L power C. So the dimensional formula of Q is equal to the dimensional formula of neta to the power A, dimensional formula of R to the power B, and dimensional formula of P by L to the power C. So what is the dimensional formula of neta? M L minus 1 T minus 1 to the power A. What about R? It is L power B. Pressure. What is pressure? Force. So mLT minus 2 divided by L square. Cancel it. So mL minus 1 T minus 2. So mL minus 1 T minus 2 to the power C divided by L power C. So what will you get? M power A plus C. L power minus A plus B minus C. Minus C. Minus 2C. P power minus 2C. So what is the dimensional formula of Q? Volume flowing per unit time. So LQ T minus 1. Correct? So A plus C is how much? 0. Minus A plus B minus 2C is 3. Minus A minus 2C is minus 2. Is it clear? So A plus C is equal to 0. Cancel it. Minus C is equal to minus 1, which implies C is equal to 1. When C is equal to 1, A will be minus 1. When A is minus 1, C is 1, take and substitute it here. 1 plus B minus 2 is equal to 3. So B will be equal to 4. So Q will be equal to K times Neta power A, so neta power 1, R power B, that is R power 4, and P by L to the power C, which is again 1. So is it right? So what are the, 1 minute, 1 minute, don't copy. So what are the expressions you have learned? Ah, the expression is pi p r power 4 divided by 8 times beta into L. So sorry, A is -1. So k into r power 4 into p divided by beta into L. How much is the value of k according to this equation? K will be pi by 8. Okay, that is calculated experimentally. Is it clear, guys? If they ask you this derivation, this is how you need to solve it. Did you guys copy it? Q is the amount of liquid flowing per unit time, volume of liquid per unit time. Done? Done? So that's all with this chapter. Check if that is something. That's it, guys. So that's it. We are done with this chapter. So we'll be having a test in this chapter when this fifth, right? You will have a test on 16th or 17th. I'll confirm the date. Okay. Mostly, yeah, 16th or 17th, there will be a test based on this complete chapter. So revise it. I'll be sharing an assignment also on which you guys work and reach out to me if there are any other doubts. Okay. So apart from this, is there any other doubt, guys, that you have? Right. So we have thermal properties of matter, thermodynamics, kinetic theory of. So we have 5 more chapters pending, okay, which can be easily completed. This is the biggest chapter. The other chapters will not take this much time. Don't worry. Again, the biggest chapter is waves. You can take care, not a big deal. We'll try to complete it by before mid of February. So in the meanwhile, keep revising and studying. So for today, that's it from my end. Any other doubts that you want me to clarify? Any topics that you're not clear with?
Sir, can you tell the definition for angle of contact?
Definition for
Angle of contact.
angle of contact. I'll share the notes now, that way you can copy it. Angle of contact is the angle between the tangent drawn to the liquid surface with the liquid column inside the surface. So this is the one I'll show you. So, anyway, this notes will come to you. Anything else?
Sir, here the tangent can be in both the direction, right?
Which both the directions means? If the liquid is like this, then you can draw only one tangent. You can't draw a tangent here. You can draw a tangent like this, and this is the liquid surface. This is what is called as angle of contact. Similarly, if the liquid is having a convex meniscus, then you will draw a tangent like this, and this angle is what we call it as the angle of contact.
Sir, why can't be it in the upward direction?
That is how it is defined. Look at the definition I told you yesterday. The angle between tangent and liquid surface at the point of contact and the solid surface, which is inside the liquid. So solid surface would be inside the liquid. That is what we call it as angle of angle of contact.
Sir, so that line will represent solid surface.
Sorry.
Apart from the tangent, the line is the right in the left side.
Right.
Yeah.
This line is what we need. That line should be inside the liquid. We should not take this. That is what the definition says.
Yes, sir.
Bubble. So bubble. Bubble has two free surfaces. So if you take a soap bubble, inside it is air, outside it is air. So what is the definition of free surface? It is a boundary that is separating the liquid and air medium. So liquid, listen, liquid and one air medium. Same liquid and second air medium. So how many free surfaces it has? So this is free surface 1, this is free surface 2. So that is why liquid bubbles, soap bubbles have two free surfaces. Whereas when you take water bubble, what will happen? Water drop. Inside it is water, outside it is air, and you have a boundary there is only one side of the boundary which is separating the liquid and the air medium. So it has only one free surface. That is why for water bubble has one free surface, whereas soap bubble, water drop has one free surface, whereas soap bubble has two free surfaces. The number of free surfaces you have is equal to the number of surface tensions. Right? Any other doubts?
No, sir.
Done? So if there are no doubts, we can wind up this and log into the next class.